All right, thank you. Thanks everyone for joining today. My name is Chris Mitchell, solution engineer here at InflowCX, and I'll be running today's webinar. Today we're going to talk about using Microsoft Teams as your PBX. If you haven't had a chance to look at any upcoming webinars we have, we're getting ready to either we just loaded on the May ones, or we're getting ready to. So a couple of upcoming May webinars we have is Genesys admin training on call queues and schedules, and Genesys experience as a service. So those are both coming up, plus a few more that we typically try to run between 2 and 5 webinars a month on there. So pay attention to to our website for upcoming webinars we have. Quick, I'll change my slide for me. There we go. Quick agenda here. If you're newer to our webinar series, I'll talk who is InflowCX, and then I'll jump right in, to Teams as the PBX. I'll save a little bit of time at the end for question and answer, and then if there's any questions I don't get to or I need to follow up on, there'll be a contact us page at the very end as well. As I'm going through here, if you have any questions, feel free to drop into the question and answer section inside the webinar. I'll try to answer them on each of the individual slides that I'm on. If and like I said, if I don't get to them, then I'll answer them at the very end in the question and answer section. So who is InflowCX? So a lot of you might know us as Inflow Communications. Inflow. Part of our rebranding is our focus on the customer experience. So we're a provider of strategic advisory, deployment, managed services, for the contact center, customer experience, and unified communication. So, we used to specialize in Mitel. We still have a lot of Mitel customers, but a lot of our customers are migrating to, contact center focused, initiatives or cloud, cloud initiatives. So we're kind of growing with our customers. So we're helping organizations, with guidance, execution, optimization of their customer engagements. Our expertise is in customer experience, UC, contact center, workforce management, workforce optimization, AI, automation, analytics, anything that really involves your how your customers engage with you as a business. We provide vendor neutral approach around evaluations, labor strategies, operational effectiveness, all of that stuff that's kind of newer to a lot of our customers have known us for a long time as we're growing into that space. We now have over 80 employees. We've done 1,000 different customer experience customers that we work with. We have 500 plus contact center deployments, 300 contact center consulting engagements, and over 1,000 UC projects. So we're definitely have a big expertise around UC, contact center, and customer experience. Some of the accolades that we and partners we work with, we're 5.9 Sales Partner of the Year, an Implementation Partner. We're a Genesys Implementation Partner of the Year, NICE CX1, Platinum, and MicroSI and Platinum Implementation Partner, Zoom and RingCentral Certified Implementation Partners as well. Some of the customers we work with, you can see they span all different, tech, retail, hospitality, real estate, healthcare, finance, industry, insurance. I'm sure there's some names on there that you recognize. So we have a lot of customers spanning all different verticals. And the technology partners that we work with here now, so this is, I would say, the bigger tech partners that we work with from a contact center perspective: Genesys, 5.9, NICE, UJET, Twilio, Taka, Savaya. On the bottom of it, from a UC's perspective, RingCentral, Zoom, Fuse, 8x8, Nextiva. We can talk about Teams today, Dialpad. And then kind of in the middle is all of our ecosystem stuff. These are products that integrate either with a UC or a contact center platform, workforce management, quality analytics, AI, agent assist, all those kind of things, kind of all blend together to kind of give each of our customers a unique customer experience platform. So if you have questions about any of the providers that we work with, or if there's a need for looking at your 6-month, 12 months, 24-month, 34-month technology plan, reach out to your CSM, reach out to your sales reps. We're more than happy to hop on a call and kind of talk through what your long-term strategies are around your technology platform and your customer experiences. All right, well, now what everybody came here for. We talk about Microsoft Teams. So I probably have two 2 to 3 Microsoft Teams, discussions with our customers every single week. As it's been growing, as COVID, through COVID, everything like that, Teams got a big boom or bump, just like Zoom did. Zoom got a huge video bump. Well, Teams got a huge, instant messaging, collaboration bump as well on that. And since then, a lot of customers are like, well, maybe we stick with Teams, for our communications platform, or how do we integrate Teams, into our, our communication stack. So that's what we're going to be kind of talking about today. So the first things I always like to talk about is, will Teams work for you, as a company? And so Teams has a lot of really good features, but as far as UC or a PBX, they're not as, mature as some of the other platforms out there. So I always talk about is, what's your reporting needs? Teams has some reporting, but it doesn't have a lot of analytics, dashboarding and, kind of reporting available. So if you have light reporting needs, great. Okay. Then Teams, might be a good fit for you as your PBX. What about third-party integrations? When you're looking in Teams and you go to, you can go to install, they have there are some applications that have integrations with Teams. A lot of them, might be like a CRM or something like that, but there isn't a ton of integration options open to Teams yet, because Microsoft it really controls that. They don't have like the open APIs and stuff like some of the other cloud platforms have. So it's a little bit harder to integrate products with Teams. It has to be a certified, application, that they certify with Teams or Microsoft, and then they get listed in the Microsoft Teams, App Store. Some of the features that are still, coming or aren't available for Teams is an operator console, SMS, and faxing. So you can use third-party faxing services. Sure, there's one company who's trying to work on an operator console to make it work, but it doesn't work with doesn't have all the features and stuff like that. And SMS isn't a feature that isn't available yet. That is, SMS is on the roadmap for Teams, but they haven't committed to a time for it yet. Is your call flow simple? So Teams has been adding some additional kind of light contact center features and stuff like that to, over the past 6 months. But some of the call flow and stuff to manage inside of Teams is a little bit harder to do. But if you have like some auto attend and some hunt group kind of light call group features, great. Teams works really well in that space. If you're trying to either replace a contact center or do like light contact center, that's where it takes a little bit more. It's going to take a little bit more work to set that up and manage it, from a Teams perspective. Or if you need a heavier contact center, then you're going to have to be integrating Teams with a third-party contact center solution. From administration, so obviously you're going to do you're going to do most of your administration for Teams inside of Office 365. So you don't have a dedicated Teams, kind of PBX administration portal. Everything's being done, from an Office 365 perspective. So it's a little bit harder to manage and stuff like that. It's fairly easy to manage, adding users and removing users and stuff like that, and is very easy. Adding call licenses and call plans, stuff like that, it's all done through through Office 365. So that's a fairly easy process though. But when you start getting to managing the phone system, that's where Microsoft could use a little bit more work. Over the next probably 24 months, they will, they'll get to to where a lot of the current companies already are. The last thing is from a support perspective, when you Office 365 and everything like that, Microsoft Teams and SLAs. So Teams has an SLA as far as uptime for Teams, but they don't have an SLA around the phone system piece of it. Call queues, auto attendance, dial tone, that kind of stuff. They don't have a specific SLA around those, where if you look at, like, say, a Zoom, a 5.9, 8x8, they're going to give you a 5.9 or a 4.9 uptime, where they can have let's say 18 minutes of downtime in a month or something like that. So as Teams is rolling out more features to the PBX, they will they'll end up with a phone specific SLA here, I would guess in the next 12 months. So Teams is making a lot of progress. They have their collaboration suite as far as instant messaging and meetings, stuff like that, is really, really good, especially accessing like OneDrive and stuff, from within the Teams platform. There's some really cool benefits and everything there. So now what we're going to talk about is a couple different options of how you can use Teams and what it looks like using Teams as your PBX. Okay, just looking over. I answered all those questions that came in, so perfect. I'll leave those there. So option number one, make Teams a PBX and go out and get some dial tone. So first thing we need to do is we need to make sure we have the right licensing for Microsoft. So we're either going to need an E5 license or we're going to need a PBX phone license added to your Office 365 users. So that gives you the dial pad inside of Teams, so that you can place calls. So if you do that, that gives you the dial pad, but it doesn't give you any phone numbers, or it doesn't give you any dial tone. So two options of ways you can get dial tone. Instead of buying the E5 and PBX license, you can buy what they have. They have a new license they came out with. I don't think it was maybe a little over a year ago, called the 365 Business Voice license. So you can buy these for your users, and it comes with that PBX license from above, but it also comes with an audio conferencing license and 3,000 minutes of domestic calling per user that you buy that for. So the regular price for that PBX voice license is $20 a user per month. I think if you prepay and for a year at a time, I think you can get it down to $15 per user per month. But so if you just buy a PBX license, the audio conferencing license is a separate. I think it's like a $4 add-on on top of that. So there is some, I would say, a few different licenses where you kind of feel like you're being nickel and dime, because I got to buy a PBX license. Oh, I got to buy an audio conferencing license. Oh, now I got to buy a dial plan. So you can just go and buy Microsoft dial tone from them, or dial plans, and they are typically on average about $11 a user. I think is what Microsoft typically charges. So if you add the $11 plus the PBX license, which is $8, plus the audio conference, $4, it makes more sense to just buy that business voice license. Or bring your own carrier in, and you can see from this diagram here, Microsoft does have a ton of providers that are certified with them, so you don't necessarily have to use Microsoft as your dial tone provider. You can, if you'd like. They don't require you to. If you bring your own provider in, you will have to spin up an Azure Session Border Controller. Sometimes the carrier will do that for you. Sometimes you have to do that, and then that's how the carriers get integrated into your Teams environment. The one advantage of bringing your own carrier rather than using Microsoft is if there is an outage in Teams, that carrier can forward calls to, say, maybe a cell phone number, or another phone number, where if Microsoft has an outage, they can't forward because they're down as well. So a couple of different options there when you're looking at it. So there's really two things you have to have in order to use Teams Azure PBX. Is you need that PBX license, which you can get either as a standalone, as part of an E5 Office 365 license, or as part of the business voice license. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you need dial tone. So you can either bring your own provider in, buy Microsoft as your provider, or buy that business voice license, which includes a Microsoft Azure provider and 3,000 minutes per user. Obviously, if you go over the 3,000 minutes per user, there's some usage charges from Microsoft. But if you have 10 users getting it, that's going to give you 30,000 domestic minutes. Obviously, toll-free minutes, something like that, in international minutes would be additional costs on top of that. But those are really the two things you have to have. Use Teams as your PBX license and dial tone. The audio conferencing is really just if you want on your Teams meetings, if you want an outside phone number that people can dial into. If you're perfectly fine with everybody using, hosted voice or VoIP, then you don't need that. You don't need that audio conferencing license. But the one thing to know is that audio conferencing is a per user license. So maybe there's a handful of people you want to have dial-in phone numbers on their conferences. You can buy it just for a handful of users, and not buy the audio conferencing license for every single person. All right, let's see here. Question. Oh, if I use Microsoft as my provider, am I stuck with them long term? No. So you can start with Microsoft as your provider. You could buy phone numbers through them if you want, and then down the road, if you say, I don't really love Microsoft as my provider, you can port those phone numbers to any provider that you want. That was one of the best laws that they got passed years ago, was the number portability law from here in the U.S. Is that once you buy a number, you own that number, and you can take that number anywhere that you want to any provider in the U.S. International, then we get into different laws and stuff like that. But in the States, if you buy a number with any provider, you own that number, you can take it to any other provider you want. Okay, so maybe, maybe all of that isn't quite what somebody's looking for. So let's go to the next option here. So the next option is to use Teams as the PBX, is we could pair Teams with a UCaaS solution, but the users still work solely out of Teams. So the nice thing here is your users think they're using Teams for all their dial tone, but on the back end, we have a SIP integration between Teams and a UCaaS provider. So in this case, some of the ones on the bottom that provide this, 8x8, Mitel, RingCentral, and Avaya. So those are 4 of them that we work with that all provide this option. They build a tie line on the back end so that every call that you make, you pick up your Teams phone, or you pick up your Teams mobile application, you place a call. Teams then sends that call to just say 8x8. And then 8x8 actually sends the call outbound. 8x8 is the dial tone provider. They're hosting all the dial tone. They would host all the call flow, all the reporting, everything I get of external calls. If you use Teams for internal calling, like I just want to call another one of my employees, that wouldn't ever have to touch 8x8. That would just be a Teams to Teams call. 8x8 in this case would be the provider if you're doing any external calling, inbound or outbound of the system. So your users use the Teams app on their desktop and the Teams mobile app to place and receive their external calls or their internal calls. So it's really nice is you don't have to teach your users multiple applications. They're just using Teams. But the other really nice thing is you have an SLA on the back end from one of these providers providing you SLA and providing you advanced call flow features and advanced reporting and everything like that, on that side of things. So IT is going to be managing, 2 different solutions from a management perspective. Is they will be doing, they'll have the Office 365 that they manage, setting up users in and everything like that. And they will have to manage call flow and reporting and stuff like that inside, of the UCaaS solutions website, admin website. In this setup here, if you're using soft phones, it's perfectly easy. Boom, you have a Teams soft phone for every user. But if you do want some physical phones, maybe in a conference room or something like that, those physical phones are connected and managed through Teams and Office 365. So they will not be, physical phones would not be connected to, say, like we would talk about 8x8 in this case. They would be connected to Teams. They would be Teams physical phones. And the main reason there is because all of your endpoints are in Teams, and Teams is the endpoint, and then on the back end, we're just sending calls over to one of these providers as your dial tone and solution provider on the back end. One note here is you would still need either an E5 or a PBX license from Microsoft to use this feature. So then you got to kind of figure out is you have that $8 license from Microsoft for the PBX license. You're also going to have a cost from one of these providers. So you got to really, we have to really figure out from a cost perspective, does it make sense, to have both providers? You're going to get a better SLA and more advanced features this way, but does it make sense from a cost perspective, or does it fit in your budget to pay Microsoft and to pay one of these providers for this solution? Question here. We did have a question. Another question came in that I didn't answer here. This says, for Mitel, would this work on-prem or would it be a cloud-hosted version? So in this case, it would be a cloud-hosted version for Mitel. Mitel, we can integrate the Mitel on-prem system with Teams, and we've done it for a couple customers. But the only real benefit we get from integrating a Mitel on-prem system with Teams is that we can pass calls back and forth, between Teams and Mitel. We don't really give. It doesn't give us the ability for the Teams users, to utilize all these features of the Mitel Prem system. With Mitel Cloud, partnering with RingCentral, they now give us this ability to run the back end where we integrate Teams, to the new Mitel Cloud, which is powered by RingCentral on the back end. So it would be the Mitel Cloud version, and actually both of Mitel's cloud versions supported this when they had their own MyCloud Connect, and now the new Mitel Cloud powered by RingCentral. They both supported this same functionality where Teams could be integrated on the back end to Mitel. All right, let's see. I think that, one other question here. Is Avaya Cloud Office powered by RingCentral as well? Yes, it is. So RingCentral actually powers about 4 or 5 different providers on the back end. So you'll see Mitel in there, just announced a partnership with RingCentral, and I think it was November of last year. Avaya partnered with them a couple of years ago. AT&T also partners with RingCentral. So RingCentral does a lot of the back-end development for these companies, and then they get a branded client and everything like that. This is Mitel or Avaya or AT&T, or a handful of other companies out there. So yeah, so RingCentral is the back-end provider for a handful of cloud systems out there, and then they just they get a branded portal and a branded client, in whatever product that is. So there's some flexibility with customers who are looking to go RingCentral, as you could go just straight RingCentral, or you can go with a branded version of RingCentral as well. So there's some options there. I would say from a straight integration, if you're looking to use Teams as your client, 8x8 probably has the best integration with Teams in this case, and the most flexible pricing setup if you're looking to use Teams as your end client for your employees and customers. All right, we got one more option here. So the last option we could do is we could pair Teams with the UCaaS solution and have users work out of Teams and the UCaaS client. So in this case, they wouldn't necessarily only work out of Teams. We would do like a Teams dialer integration. So your users would have the UC app installed on their computer, and they would have Teams installed as well. And then they would have a dialer inside of Teams that allows them to place a call, to Zoom or RingCentral or GoToConnect, and then those applications would open up and actually place the call for you. So your users would call each other within Teams, but then anytime they need to place an external call, that's when they would go to Zoom Phone, RingCentral, GoToConnect, one of those products. Inside of Teams, those little dialers, they do give you access to a dialer, to call history, and to voicemail. So they do give some of the functionality inside of Teams, but anytime an actual call is placed or received, it is through say a RingCentral application. So what about the mobile application? That's what I was going to a lot of people ask. Okay, if my users use the mobile application, and under this setup, your users would use either RingCentral, Zoom, or GoToConnect's mobile application. They could use the Teams mobile application on their mobile phones, but they could only use that for internal calling, just calling amongst employees. Anytime they need to call externally, they would need to use the mobile application of one of the other providers. From an IT perspective, you would just like the other setup, you'd manage your Office 365 users inside of there, and for Teams, and I'd manage all of my PBX kind of UC stuff inside the provider's interface. I still get access to call flows, all the advanced reporting. The UC provider, like in this case, the RingCentral they would still be the dial tone provider. Microsoft would not be the dial tone provider. The one benefit here is there's no license required from Microsoft to use this functionality. It's just it's an application you install inside of Teams to kind of give you dialer, kind of like a shortcut dialer inside of Teams. And all of your physical phones, like your conference phones, stuff like that, would be connected to Zoom or RingCentral in this case, and be managed inside of those applications. They would not be managed inside of Teams. So the benefit, like I said here, is there's no $8 phone license, required from Microsoft, but your users have to have 2 applications installed. Some reasons customers like this though is that if you want to use like SMS and faxing, let's just say with RingCentral, if I do the full Teams integration, I lose that functionality because Teams can't support faxing and SMS or like an operator console. Well, in this case, I get like a dialer shortcut inside of Teams. I can check my call history, my voicemail inside of Teams. But once I open the RingCentral client up, I can now SMS text. I have desktop faxing for every single user. I have an operator console available for every single user. All that kind of stuff that I'm used to. That I'm looking for maybe in a cutting edge, brand new, cloud phone system that I don't necessarily get if I use Teams as my end client. So, there's some trade-offs obviously between using Teams Azure PBX, great. It's it's easy. It's not necessarily. I was going to say some people say it's cheaper. Well, by the time if I buy that business voice license at $20 a month, unless I'm going to prepay for a full year, at $20 a month, that's pretty much the same price if I just go out and buy like a Zoom phone, or a RingCentral license. So from a cost perspective, they're all very similar now. They've all kind of, they all have their list prices that they list, and then they all have the price that you actually end up paying for it. And about $20 is pretty average now on that side of things. So the benefits, it used to be where, if I could get Teams for this price or something like that, it's about the same price if you were to look at like a Zoom phone or a RingCentral or a GoToConnect as well. So really, it comes down to now is when we talk with customers is let's look at the features and the goals that we have, and then let's figure out does it make sense using Teams with Microsoft as the dial tone provider, or does it make sense maybe just to use Microsoft with the third party provider, or should we look at integrating Teams in with something else? Or in some of our customers say, we're going to use Teams for instant messaging and collaboration, and let's just use a third party a phone system separate from Teams, because that way I don't have to worry about trying to merge the two together, something like that. So we have customers that are doing every single one of these options, or just using a cloud phone system, by itself, and Teams instant messaging by itself. So lots of different options for using Teams in whatever method and capabilities you want. If it's just for instant messaging and collaboration, great. We can help find you a UC solution that can pair with that. The other thing we have to look at is if you have contact center needs. Teams doesn't have a full contact center, so then if we need to integrate a contact center on top of this, now we could be looking at a UC provider, Teams, and a contact center provider. So now we're looking at multiple integrations, together, or maybe we use Teams for the PBX and we use a contact center provider, for the contact center. So there's lots of different options that we can do there as far as, integrating Teams into different products. So if there's, if your goal is to use Teams, internally, and you're looking to expand or figure out how's the best way to do that, feel free to reach out. Reach out to us. We're more than happy to get on a call, talk it through. I have a Teams demo environment. I can show you what all of this looks like live. I can show you what Zoom phone and RingCentral look like, inside of Teams. I can show you what a backend, integration with like 8x8, or RingCentral looks like as well inside of Teams. And I can also just show you what regular Teams dial tone looks like. So I have options that kind of demo all of these to you, and then we can work with somebody from our sales team to help figure out what does it look like from a cost perspective? What's the ROI? What are the ins and outs of the licensing and stuff like that? Do we sell the Teams licensing? No, we don't sell the Teams licensing, but we have companies we can refer in for providing Teams dial tone, and obviously, we sell all the different UC providers that can integrate with Teams, so we're here to help out, answer questions, as they come. Feel free. I answered, I think I got to all the questions that came in. So if you have future questions, or you want to have a conversation, or you maybe want to see a demo, feel free to reach out to us. Hit us at contact@inflowcx.com, or reach out to your account manager, your salesperson. We'll be more than happy to hop on a call, talk through the ins and outs, do a demo for you, and help you get you some quotes to look at. Maybe you need budgetary numbers for next year's budget or 2 years out. Great. Let's start working on that now, so you can know exactly what to request from a budgetary number. Or maybe you just want to talk about when is the end of life of my prem system? What does it look like, and when do I need to be making decisions on going to the cloud in the future? All of these different questions we're here for. We're here for you to help and figure that out, and kind of be your guide, when you're looking and evaluating different products in the future. So I think I got to all the questions here. And I think I think I did see a question here coming in. We will send out a link to the recording of this call as well, so you'll get a copy of the recording of this conversation as well. So thanks for joining today. I look forward to seeing all of you on a webinar in the future.